the body is the amazing healer. No medicine or anything out there does anything that heals. It's the body knows, and the genes and everything that are encoded in us or developed, because now we're finding that only, I think, 2% of genes are coded when you're born. The other 98% are based on your environment that you learn and gets coded within your body as you grow. So we're not really predetermined to very much of anything other than kind of the rough outline of what we look like, hair color, bone structure, things like that.
Hi, Cody.
Hi.
Brother of Cameron.
Yeah.
So I just talked to Cameron for a little while about Equiscope, the Pain-Free Institute, what you guys are doing here, the cutting edge technology that I mean, unfortunately, a lot of people don't know about. Right. He gave us a really good rundown of what it is and kind of the amazing things that it can do. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to getting your perspective on this as well, because you're just as involved, right? Yeah,
we've both had about 8 years of working with the device and learning about it. Cameron got the device, and I think he told his story about how he got introduced to it, and then about a month to 2 months after he fixed his injury and came back, I tore my medial meniscus on my left leg playing volleyball with the Olympic team. And it was so horribly damaged. I mean, my knee was twice the size with inflammation. It was hot and swollen and painful. Every time I would try and step, it would pop out of place. I, needless to say, couldn't play any sports. I could barely walk from, the couch to the fridge. And
God, you guys and your injuries.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. No wonder why you fell into this.
Sure. And I mean, there's a lot of other people out there and a lot of other athletes that go through such horrible stuff, such, much worse than we had it. But so we feel very blessed to have been introduced to it, and, part of the reason why we have PFI and are sharing this and, telling as many people as we can. But so I was not able to do anything. Cameron said, "Hey buddy, come over and let me strap this on you. Fix me. Let me see if it can help you." And in about 5 to 6 weeks, right around 10 sessions, I was back on the court playing Olympic volleyball with no loss in range of motion, no pain, no inflammation, no swelling. Knee wasn't popping out of place. I almost felt better than I did before the injury, as weird as that sounds. And I know Cameron has said that too, that, you feel like all the muscle systems and everything is just flowing correctly, and there's not a stagnation going on in that area of the body. It's almost like it's freed up your consciousness to not even have to address that and send energy, positive energy to that area to heal it. It's just doing what it's supposed to do already, which is really nice. Yeah.
Can you talk about what we were just talking about during our little break, about oh gosh, what was it? You were telling me it was another case study that was just incredible. Oh, the paraplegic?
Sure, yeah. So a lot of times, things get misdiagnosed. And a lot of times, I guess we were making the analogy, if we sit with our legs crossed for too long, your foot falls asleep, you can't feel it, don't have any movement in it. Kind of that same thing will happen with spinal injuries, and when people are no longer able to use their legs or their arms because that part of the spinal cord has been squeezed off and the energy can no longer flow, because we are electrical beings. And then you get the loss of the use of your legs or your arms. And when you're able to remove that inflammation from that area of that energy highway in the spine, all that energy starts to flow freely again, or you can get impingement gone, or you can get the vertebrae to release or to get more fluid in the discs of your spine. All these amazing things start to happen because the energy can flow correctly now. And so you can get people to, stand up out of their wheelchairs that haven't been able to because they've just had so much inflammation, or that energy highway has been blocked off, or either from heavy metals or toxins or scar tissue that's formed from a surgery, or from previous injury that wasn't able to be addressed before. Now is gone, and you have all the systems acting like they're supposed to.
So you've seen this. You've seen someone who was paralyzed and in a wheelchair, then get some treatments or sessions done from the Electro-Equiscope.
Yeah.
And then they're fine.
And then stand up, yeah.
And they stand up and they're walking?
Yeah.
Like, would you say that they were cured?
I don't know about that word. That's a pretty dangerous word in the medical community. But we were able to remove, the issues that were going on, or the body was able to remove the issues that were going on in that area, which, stopped that energy flow from communicating with the rest of the body, and then everything comes back into play that, the body knows how to do. So, if you got, and that's the body's natural response too, is the thing is, when you bang your elbow, it swells up with inflammation. So, and whenever you move it, it hurts. It's your body telling you, don't move that. We want to get as much healing going on to this area. And so, if there are other issues in the body, or it's in an area that the body wants to really protect, it'll sometimes seal that area off and kind of quarantine it. So things aren't able to come in, or things aren't able to go out. So a lot of that inflammation or that swelling or that fluid will stay and, continue to wreak havoc, because the body says, hey, we gotta contain this so every other thing can flow naturally. It's kind of like what happens when you're stuck out in the snow. The first thing that'll happen is your fingers and your toes will turn black, because those are the things that don't need the blood flow to keep the organism alive. So those will start to go, and then the legs and the body will start to cut the blood flow to the legs and the arms to protect all of the vital organs. And so that's kind of the same idea, is it'll quarantine stuff that's not serving. And, if it can continue to stay alive, the organism, then it'll keep that system sitting in, whatever disarray it is, as long as you can continue, whatever homeostasis happens to be at that point in time. So we can, to go back, we can eliminate all of that inflammation, and amazing things happen when you do. So that'll allow people to get in control of their legs again, of their limbs, of whatever might be squeezed off, neck pains, headaches, concussions, that energy pathway and that highway up and down the spine and the neck is so important, and the brain is simply just, a computer, that tells everything how to work.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that, about
Sure.
how it can affect the brain too. You guys were talking about PTSD,
Right.
some other neurological disorders. I hadn't even thought about that.
Sure.
How does that work?
Yeah. So again, it's that electrical system. It's that computer, and so you have the synapses, which there's billions and billions of them in your brain, and each little synapse has a potential, I think, 40,000 connections. So of the billions and billions, each one can connect to 40,000 individual different connections. So you have a lot of information flowing throughout the brain. And what will happen is, like with people with PTSD, we create a memory, and the synapses will connect to individual parts of the brain that create that memory, or that connection, muscle memory, or tied to an emotion. So when a guy that has PTSD from a war hears a car that's driving by, do the backfire and freaks out, or hit the ground, and gets pulled right back into that memory, that's a synapse that's connected to that sound, to that emotion, to that memory. And it's an electrical signal, and the machine can basically tell that it doesn't serve the body anymore to have that electrical connection. And so while sitting here and just talking with using the device, we can retrain your brain and retrain your nervous system to not fire incorrectly and go back to that memory that doesn't serve anymore, and get new synapses to connect and new things to fire within the brain, new energy pathways, new thought processes.
How does this work for other neurological disorders, like schizophrenia, or does it kind of work the same way?
Yeah, and so things like say Alzheimer's, I believe, and I know there's other people out there that talk about it, doctors and whatnot, that talk about again, those synapses in the brain. So if I were to take a cell phone and take a piece of tinfoil and wrap it completely around the cell phone, that creates what's called a Faraday cage, which doesn't allow any electrical information in or out of the phone. It's basically
interesting.
cut off. It can't receive any messages, no texts, no nothing. It can send none. So we have large amounts of heavy metals within our body from our environment, the air that we breathe, the food that we eat, the water that we drink. You have fluoride in just about everything. You got horrible stuff in toothpaste and deodorant and shampoo and conditioner, and all these things are constantly bombarding our system with these heavy metals, along with other toxins and things that are not conductive for the body. So because the synapses and the brain is this electrical unit, when all these little filaments of aluminum or barium or strontium or mercury get into the body, I think that they cloud those electrical firing nodes, the synapses, that don't allow the information to escape, just like with the cell phone and the Faraday cage. So the machine will actually help pull those metal pieces out and allow that electrical conductance to flow again. So we find that people that their parents can't remember their name or where they are after short time of sessions with the Equiscope, they're now remembering all these things because those heavy metals have been pulled out. And it will adjust the areas in the brain that aren't firing correctly, because the body knows what homeostasis is. It's all programmed within us. It doesn't necessarily need new information to come in to tell it how to act. It just kind of needs to be reminded of what its natural processes were and be freed up of the things that bog it down, so that it can perform at those functions that it knows. I think Cameron was saying that the body is the amazing healer. No medicine or anything out there does anything that heals. It's the body knows, and the genes and everything that are encoded in us or developed, because now we're finding that only, I think, 2% of genes are coded when you're born. The other 98% are based on your environment that you learn and gets coded within your body as you grow. So we're not really predetermined to very much of anything other than kind of the rough outline of what we look like, hair color, bone structure, things like that.
And then everything else is environment?
I think so, yeah.
Wow.
That's what they're finding now.
So it's just freeing everything up to be its most natural self and allowing the body to do its thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and the body knows, and that's another big component with the device and with our company of what we want to do, and to touch again on that education standpoint. One reason, to back up a little, one reason we like working with professional athletes is because they have all these prerequisites that are there for good health, for good conductance. They have right amount of water intake, so they got electrolytes. Their cells are nice and healthy and conductive. They generally have amazing exercise, so all the systems are already regulating. Their detoxification level is really good. So they have all these prerequisites in line as well. Good mental health. That's very, very strong thing that we want to get across to people, is how you talk to yourself, how you view yourself, your intent. If you tell yourself, oh, I'm stupid, I'm not smart, I'm not good enough, that is what you will be. That is, you create your own mindset, your own destiny. You manifest all of your emotions into this physical realm, and how you speak to yourself, I think, really has a lot to do with your physical health. If you're positive all the time and you're constantly saying, I can do this, I'm smart enough, I'm good enough, I deserve this, generally you will. Generally nobody makes it very, very far or becomes very successful with continuously doubting themselves.
How does that fall into this?
So there are studies that are done if you are going to eat something that's very unhealthy, like a Snickers bar, and you tell yourself, man, this is going to be horrible for me. This is going to go right to my waist. It's going to go all to my thighs. It's I know how many calories are in it. It's going to make me feel sluggish. Your body will actually start to process it that way. But if you think about it, I'm like, this is so amazing. I haven't had one of these in so long. It's going to be delicious. It's going to fill me up. It reminds me of when I was a kid. Whatever, your body actually will process it in a more healthy way.
Really?
Yeah.
So, and that just has to do with the energy?
That just has to do with your intention.
With your intention?
Yeah.
Have you heard of the law of attraction?
Absolutely.
We had someone on to talk about that.
Yeah.
And she, it's all about the energy and the vibrations. And it's funny, this is one of the things I asked her about and have been curious about is kind of the science behind it. Because they talk about the physics behind it. And, and I have yet to hear anyone really break that down. They talk about the vibrations, but
sure,
that's all I've kind of heard.
Sure.
Do you think this kind of falls in line with this? Because that's something exactly that they would say is what you ingest or anything in life. Your intention is how you will manifest how that ends up.
Sure. Science-wise, I'm not sure. I think it has to come back to vibrational entities or frequency. We know that absolutely everything has a mathematical, electrical mathematical signature that can be quantified. That glass of water, the water inside of it, pants, air, absolutely everything is quantifiable in that small electrical signature. So I think even though when you think something that it can't be heard, and it can't be quantified, by normal means of, picking up someone's voice, on a mic or feeling a vibration, that it still has an intent because of the consciousness, and that kind of goes into a completely different area. But I think, as far as how it translates, that it's frequency, that somehow that energy flow is being directed, kind of like the device. It's being directed to an area to counteract or correct certain frequencies. That doing that same thing with your brain is sending directed frequencies to an area to have a positive influence. Maybe that is how it's being delivered. In terms of the science side, I'm not 100% there. So maybe at a later date.
I'll have to have you guys come back on. But I mean, that's essentially what they say is, the saying goes, the energy. What is it? The energy flows where the focus goes, or what is it? Focus. Energy flows where the focus goes. Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you think it just has to do with energy, really?
I think
energy directing.
Yeah, and then there being positive energy, and something to relate, because a lot of people go, well, how does electricity and, my body and health, how does that all, come together? And it kind of sounds far-fetched or out there, or, not generally what people are used to hearing, and you relate it to something as simple as like music. Everybody, for the most part, loves music. Certain types of music do different things for different people. Some people, when, really heavy metal starts playing, gives them a headache. kind of is, discordant to them. A lot of people, when putting on classical music, is very soothing, very calming. Generally, a high level of learning is involved when, classical music is brought around. But I think that's that energy healing, that frequency that you are resonating with, that your body resonates with. So when you hear a good country song, something come on, and you start tapping your foot, and makes you smile or makes you think about something, that's literally energy healing, frequency entering your body that either resounds or is discordant to you, and changes your mood, changes how you're thinking. So again, it's all energy, it's all frequency. It's just how and in what shape and what form it enters the body, and
so this is kind of what like energy healers are doing. Have you heard of like Reiki?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. Have you tried it or know anyone who has?
Absolutely. And I think that again, that stems back to the intention thing, because I know that we will see a lot of people that have already closed themselves off to getting better. They've either been told by a number of healthcare practitioners or doctors or other people, there's nothing we can do for you. Here's this antibiotic for the rest of your life, or here's this pill, and good luck. We'll see kind of how long you're around for. And so they've already locked themselves into that mindset of, I'm not going to get better. There's nothing out there that can help me. Everybody has already told me I'm not going to get better. And then they really do not get better. They've locked themselves into that mindset of, I'm not going to heal. They identify with that pain body, and that is their identity. And
so would you say it's almost like it's another energy source that is affecting the body in addition to the Equiscope? Because I'm thinking, could the Equiscope be less effective for someone who's thinking negatively?
Sure. That mind over matter, it really is truthful. You create your own reality, you manifest your own reality. So have you ever been at work or somewhere you don't want to be, and you go, oh, maybe I can just pretend like I'm sick for an hour, and
I do that every show.
Yeah.
You're lucky I showed up today.
And the boss will say, okay, you can go home because you're not feeling good, and then you go, all right, just pretend for 2 hours. Oh, I'm not feeling good, and then after a certain amount of time, you really start to not feel good, even though there's nothing wrong with you. You have just created that. You've manifested that. You've thought about that over and over and over, and now you've created your reality, and you really do have to go home,
that's
or
so
you
true.
really do become sick because you've told yourself that's what's going to happen. That is reality, and you believed in it so strongly.
Is that something that you tell your patients?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times what we do goes far beyond just this box and putting probes on somebody. You sit down and you talk with them, and you really get to know about the person, and you get to, a lot of people don't have just in general somebody to talk to, or somebody that will understand their level of pain. And being the Pain-Free Institute, we want to address all areas of pain, whether that's physical, emotional, spiritual. Some people need a life coach, or somebody, some people just need somebody to hear them out, or to access a certain area where, when the injury had, to actually go all the way back to that area in their psyche so that they can understand it, hear themselves say it, and then release it, know that it doesn't serve them anymore. So we do end up speaking with people on a different level that they're usually not used to hearing, to get these issues out, because we hold so much of that in our language, and we identify with things again. I think that's an issue with a lot of artists. They latch on to either a period in their life or a style that holds a frequency, that holds memory for them that they identify with. I mean, a lot of times we see that as being painful. And it's hard for them to come out of it because they're constantly either singing these songs that they identify with getting in touch with that pain body. And getting people to release that is very, very powerful.
Yeah.
And there's also, things to be said about physical therapist or acupuncturist or somebody that says, I'm just going to go ahead and press right here, and the person starts breaking down sobbing. Just from them going like they weren't sad before or anything. It's just, again, we take this spiritual realm, whatever consciousness is, and we manifest it into these 3 dimensions. We take our emotions and our thought that are, not tangible things and turn them into these 3 dimensions that we live in. And a lot of times that comes through our body in emotion. And so we have this fascia within our body that sits on the outsides of all of our muscles. And
we have a what?
It's a fascia. And
fascia?
Yeah, so it's like the casing for all of our muscles. Keeps them nice in place, and they're also what is at the ends of our ligaments and our tendons that go into the bone, that hold it into the bone. The little white area, if you've ever seen on a skeleton with the muscle graft on it, it's got the little white area that connects, and then it turns into a nice pink tendon or ligament. That's fascia right there, and that's all over our body. And that is actually a very, very large part of the body's detoxification process. So when we don't stretch or we don't do yoga or exercise, we keep all of our toxins all throughout our body. And so stretching those can be very, very positive and healing. And that's that part where, somebody pushes on you and you start, because you take your emotions and you manifest them here, and then it has to be detoxed and it has to be gotten out of the body, and sometimes it gets trapped in these areas.
That's so weird to think your emotions get trapped in your body. Yeah,
totally, absolutely. Yeah, it's very interesting, and that's why talking and a therapist and getting things out, not holding it all inside and bottled up, and then it explodes, because it has to come out. It's got to come out in some form, and if you can detox it the regular way or a healthy way, you're going to cut down on those emotional outbursts or those health issues that come along with holding on to all that negative energy. Not being able to get rid of that stuff is detrimental to you. That's where things like cancer come from. Cells get shut down, and you hold on to this negative energy, and you manifest that negative energy, and then it grows into this 3-dimensional form, how it knows how to, with bacteria and with viruses.
They say stress is like the number 1 cause of most diseases, right?
Right, yeah, exactly. And then I think 100% of all disease starts in the gut.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's 80% of all disease is stress related, and then 100% is started in the gut. So gut health is paramount.
So if I just take the probes and just put them in my stomach, I should be fine, right?
Yeah.
And just don't be stressed out.
Yeah, good luck with that one.
Right.
But no, we have a number of protocols to clean out the gut and to clean out all the intestines and get everything flowing correctly in there. And
how do you do that? Do they have people ingesting anything, or it's still energy based?
Yeah, again, still all energy based. We'll have a cylinder that we'll have you hold in your hand, or we can use a plate on your lower back, or really anywhere else on the body. We use the hands. I think Cameron was touching on the hands and the feet and the teeth and the ears for reflexology and all those issues. So when you have a cylinder in the hand, you have all of the acupuncture points and all of the reflexology points that cylinder is now hitting, as well as the gut that you're running through, and then all the area in between the gut and the cylinder. So you're getting a lot of the body focused on, and a lot of these different systems to be detoxified at the same time. And then you basically move in a clockwise motion around the gut and get things to come out, break off the walls, detoxify. And a lot of times people will have to say, stop, I need to go to the bathroom.
Oh my God, that's right, because I guess that we know how that one would be.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man.
So that's there's a lot that we can do and that the machine can do, and that just that you can eliminate just with knowing standard health, with exercise, diet, things that we already know, the things that the athletic world capitalizes on very well, because our bodies are they're our money maker, and they're our profession, and so keeping it in tip-top shape is paramount to us. So nutrition, diet, exercise, positive mental health, and a lot of athletes, especially at the highest level, must have that positive image and very strong mental awareness and positive thinking mindset all the time of I can, I am, I will.
So they're just like prime patients.
Yeah.
It's probably like so much more physical for them.
Sure. Yeah, really is.
So this could sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. Yeah.
So this could be kind of a game changer for depression, for treating depression.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And again, that's where it's not kind of slap it on the person and I'll see you in 20 minutes, I'll see you in 30 minutes. We sit there and we go through different things, and we get people to tell us about their life and their issues and retrace the steps. And a lot of times, we know the power of words, and one word, or a smile, not even have to be a word, just a smile will change someone's day, and then changes that, that whole butterfly effect of everybody else that they come in contact with. But that one, how are you? Or you look fantastic today. Those couple of, frequencies that I've strung together, that make somebody smile has a very, very healing effect. So between the machine and between the human interaction, you can get a lot of very beneficial and positive things to happen in a session.
Do you guys have any certified therapists or professional therapists on board, or is it pretty much just you while you're conducting the research?
Yeah, we're partnered with a couple chiropractors, nurse practitioners, but there's a number of people that are wanting to align with us as well, healthcare practitioners and MDs, and people that see the worth and that truly want to help other human beings get better, and spread the technology that it doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg. And here's a little bit of information you could do preventative on your own with how to eat and whatnot. So yeah, we definitely have a number of healthcare practitioners that are aligned with us,
and psychologists or therapists or whatnot for the emotional state.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, a couple of life coaches.
Life coaches. That's great. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we're going to grow and grow and get more and more. And again, we are the Pain-Free Institute, and so that's all things pain. And so we want to encompass all of that. So, and if there's something new out there too that we either haven't heard about, or a new ailment, new type of issue that somebody has, we're absolutely ready to address that and help with that in whatever capacity. We stay on the up and up on what's going on in the medical world, and as well in terms of new body systems that are being found. So in 2012, I think it was, they found a new type of system in the body called the Glymphatic System. Like the lymphatic system, but with just a G in front. Okay. And it's in the brain, and it is what helps to detoxify your brain and get interstitial and extracellular waste out of the brain, while bringing in healthy spinal fluid into the brain and all that good stuff. And so they just discovered it and are now linking to it to things like glaucoma and Alzheimer's, and a number of other issues that deal with the brain and eyes and all of these systems up here, that when it gets clogged up and it doesn't get detoxified, you get these these really bad issues. I think schizophrenia was one of them as well. So, you ask a doctor, you go ask a doctor, you know what the glymphatic system is? About a 99.9% chance they're going to say no, because they're not required to go out and learn about all these new systems in the body or what affects what at what level, and they know
They're
for the
not.
most
They're
part,
not required to kind of keep up with this stuff.
they have certain amount of hours that they have to do every year for certain areas. I'm not exactly sure. I think pharmacology is like 6 or 12 hours a year. I think that they have to keep up on, and there are certain
That's it?
things. I think so. Yeah.
That doesn't seem like very many.
No, it doesn't seem like a whole lot. But there are, they definitely have to keep up on certain things, but the amount that at the level that science is growing and that medicine is growing,
Yeah.
and new discoveries and developments, and how now you have, not just a certain country that is the best at doing it and where all the information stems from. You have people all over the planet that are now looking at these things and collaborating and making things better and faster and more efficient. And so you kind of have to scour and go all over the place. And when you have to see 180 patients a day and all you have time to do really is write something down, here, take this, and that's also the only way you're going to make your money, you really don't have a whole lot of time to go studying through all these other things. And I don't think it's necessarily the doctor's fault. I think it's the caste system that they've really been put into. This is how you can make your money. These are the things that we have in place, and this is how you get paid. And good luck trying to do something off the beaten trodden path, because the mainstream information is so strong that it keeps people kind of in this mode, style of thinking, and that's another thing that we are aiming to adjust and to address.
I think more people are starting to yearn for more of this. What would you call it?
Homeopathic, naturopathic,
Yeah, and not just for natural alternatives, but even just to hear people address emotional states and
Sure.
mental states, I think is very helpful and refreshing for people, because we're starting to catch on when we go in with whatever the issue is and you get your prescription. We're starting to see what that does. We're starting to see the consequences of that.
Sure,
So-
totally. And I've always talked about wanting to put a reel together, of 1 to 2 seconds of each clip, but everything from, the 80s or before of, if you or a loved one was, suffered any damage from, mesothelioma, or took this drug and had, their eyeballs fall out of their head, or you could be awarded a cash prize. I just want to string all of those together, because I know there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, just, so people can see how much good or help these companies or these ideas or these things that they're doing for health are not helping. They're not fixing. They're not addressing.
Or even if they are doing what they're supposed to do, it's usually, like we were talking about with Cameron, usually it's more of a cover-up
Right.
of the pain
Sure.
than it is addressing the actual source
Right.
of the problem.
Sure.
Oh, and then there's the addiction thing that we talked about, and
Generally, if you go ahead and you look at and you follow the paper trail of the companies that get sued, the companies that make the drugs, the companies that do the suing, and then the lawyering companies that are all involved, and then who gets paid, it's usually a big circle of who owns who. And so they make 400 million on a drug and then pay out 50 million in court cases, or 100 million court cases, and then make that 300,000, and everybody along the way makes money, and kind of just keeps perpetuating.
could you actually
Doesn't
break that
stop.
down a little bit more specifically? Because I think this is a really interesting cycle that people know happens, but they
Sure.
don't totally know
Yeah,
the intricacies of.
sure. So you have the FDA says, okay, this company can create this pill, or this is okay for people to take. I think Cameron touched on the 30% efficacy rate required for a drug to be legal. And then they distribute them, and people go ahead and ingest these things, and they get the side effects. And even though there's lots of peer-reviewed papers and double-blind clinical testing on it that say X, Y, and Z, it's got those, so it's just past that threshold of what's acceptable now. And then you start getting the backlash of everybody getting sick, and then you have companies come out of the woodwork that do the suing for these issues and sue the big pharma and medical industries, and generally who those companies are owned by own parts or have stock in the big medical companies or the AMA or the FDA, and the paper trail kind of just continues with who gets sued, who does the suing, what lawyer group is involved, who owns that institution, or who owns that lawyering firm, and what stock companies that they have in, and they're kind of all interconnected with where everybody is making money in a circle. That's why you don't see any stop put to it, because everybody is making money.
Right.
And that's
right.
why another reason you don't see this device anywhere, is because you don't have that backlash. You don't have all these other organizations and companies, making money alongside other companies. It's kind of just focusing on health, and it's a one and done. It's
not in the system.
Right,
it's not
exactly.
in the cycle.
Yeah, it's kind of just a linear progression of sick, Equiscope, better. And,
Is that your tagline?
No. Yeah.
Sick, Equiscope, better.
That might be a good one. Actually.
This could have been a really short interview, actually.
Yeah. Exactly. There's I think a lot out there that we as citizens aren't privy to and aren't told. Kind of the inner workings of how capitalist America flows, and why it's so strong. But everybody is kind of in collusion with each other, especially at that level. Because if you're a lawyer for X amount of years and you sue these companies, you know that every couple of months you got another case that's going to be coming out with lots of people dying horribly, slowly, painfully, and this company being sued, but this company isn't held responsible. They're able to say, okay, we'll recall that because of legislation that makes money alongside, and says, okay, we don't have, let's see, there was like warfarin, and then like Humira came out, and I think they're same company, same drug company that creates the two, and the commercials for like Humira say, oh, this had less major bleeding than warfarin, and warfarin is no good anymore, but this Humira that still has major bleeding, just less, and all these other issues that are basically more or less exactly the same. It's not punished until people start to get hurt, and more information comes out in the side effects terms, and so everybody kind of plays their part, but nobody is holding these companies and everybody involved accountable.
How do you think that should change? Just more transparency, more regulation?
Yeah, definitely both of those things. I feel like having maybe a set list of banned substances, banned things that you can't include in the production of drugs.
Would that prevent any of these drugs being on the market that still help some people?
Potentially, yeah. Which is, is not what we want to do. But generally, for all of these issues, there's a counterbalance. There's something that can get you out of where you are. There's always a push and a pull. There's always an equal but opposite reaction, positive and a negative with each situation. And then in a certain amount of time, after you break that medical paradigm and you teach healthy nutrition and you teach people from a young age, how to be healthy, you've eliminated in and of itself all of these other issues that come about that these pills are created to quote unquote help. And then you just don't have the problem in the first place.
Right.
You don't have these people suffering anymore and that aren't able to get these these pills and these drugs. So I think there's a lot of answers out there. I think there are a lot of naturopathic things, home remedies that people can use that are proven to get rid of these issues. There's over the last, 10, 15 years, there's been a number of different cures for cancer that have come out that just you don't hear about because
cures,
yeah.
Like what?
Certain types of mushrooms will eat lung cancers or other different types of cancers within the body. There was a group of Canadian college students, I think in 2014, that came up with a non-patentable cure for cancer, and you didn't hear anything
non-patentable?
About. Probably because they didn't want it dumbed down. They didn't want it taken by a big medical corporation and completely changed and marginalized and made for profit, not for the cure, not for health. So if you can't patent it, you can't really make any money off of it. So I think they did that with intent, or whatever process they had found out couldn't be patented because of the things involved were very, very simple. And like a couple different combinations of food or minerals or energy, something. I'm not exactly sure, but it wasn't able to make money. And so when we see things like that in the medical industry, excuse me, they generally don't make money. And they generally get shut down real quick because that model is kind of what feeds the whole community and the whole mindset.
What
now.
Others? You said mushrooms.
Mushrooms, electricity, from a number of different modalities. You even go back to 1936, and you have Roymond Rife, who a lot of this technology is based off of, and he proved in 1936 that he could cure virtually every disease known to man.
Okay.
Yeah, and he says nobody cared. There was no money involved. There was no money in health, and nobody was very interested. But just by taking a small electrical mathematic signature and finding whatever the disease resonated at, that same frequency, and matching it, it would basically implode on itself. And I think he said virtually because he didn't get time, he didn't get around to testing every disease known to man. He didn't have that much time, but every one that he came across was defeated, by. So, yeah.
What happened with that?
Kind of the same thing that usually happens with groundbreaking pieces of information. They get discredited. They get big companies that are, in the sandbox of the FDA and AMA and all these big medical companies to get discredited and dumbed down and slandered and smeared. And
are you guys worried about that happening to you?
I think definitely, anybody has that fear that it's obviously a possibility. I think now with the age of technology, people are able to communicate across the planet simply by reaching their hand into their pocket and taking their phone out, and instantaneously
Like,
I
is
can
this
talk
true?
to.
Oh no, or
Right,
whatever. Where did
exactly.
this come from? This critique come from? Oh.
Sure, exactly. And so, when things keep advancing, keep progressing, and you have people like Dr. Oz doing whole segments on PEMF and these, electrical modalities that are helping people, it's just going to keep advancing faster and faster and more people to where it just becomes undeniable. And when I would teach my classes, I would go through some things to get people to understand that this is nothing new. First of all, that we're made of electricity. Everything is electricity. It's why you can rub your foot on a carpet and shock somebody. It's been used by ancient civilizations for a very, very, very long time. Egyptians used to take torpedo fish out of the Nile and make shallow banks and have people come and stand on the fins of the torpedo fish because they would emit a very, very small electrical frequency that would get their gout and their arthritis and everything to go away. Yeah. China and Japan, they would use electric eels and have people sit in tubs with these electric eels.
I've heard of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same concept applies. Whatever their ailment was would dissipate or go away because of this small, set of electricity. And you see the same thing in cultures all throughout history, all throughout time. We know Egyptians had batteries and that they had light bulbs, there was a level of intelligence and of health that was, that is now lost to us that we're just kind of getting back into. But, once people start to see at a grand scale that this is everywhere, that it makes sense, that it's, simple logic and math that equates and, equates to health, that it's not going to stop, and that, as all the surrounding technology gets better and better and better, that we're going to look to healthcare, and where they use machines and they have CAT scan and they have all these big, huge things that are huge pieces of equipment that are supposed to help with health, and nothing is getting better. Someone's going to ask the question, like, how have we made all of these amazing technological advances in these other areas, but now we're struggling in health, and we're supposed to be one of the most advanced countries and the strongest countries, and we are dead last in all of these areas. I think it's not going to be able to be contained, so we hope that that's kind of the level that we're at, and that the society is now at, and the mindset.
What are we last in?
I think education. Of the 14 first world developed countries, I think we're dead last.
Or I guess medically speaking, health-wise.
So we have the most deaths by medicine. We have, I believe, the highest obesity rate.
Well, that I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have the, I believe, the highest opioid consumption rate. I think Canada and the United States consume 75% of all pharmaceuticals produced in the world.
But is that just because we have more people doing the research and coming up with these drugs and these treatments?
I think it's because we have the least amount of people doing the research on what health is, about how to access true health. Not necessarily how can I feed the machine that is going and make money on this product, because that's what makes money right now. How can I teach people about health? How can I teach people about how not to have this in your system, how not to get to the area where you need that involved in your system? I don't think there's enough people dedicated to what we're doing.
Sure.
Of education and really explaining to people that it's not hard. It doesn't take a lot. It takes a little bit of willpower, to not go get fast food, 3 times a day, not
Right.
drink Diet Coke because you're on a diet.
Right.
It's that. I mean, that just blows my mind. It is
Yeah,
complete opposite. To kind of, I think there's enough people, and there's not enough people as well that aren't breaking that information highway down. So I think that on the back of a can of soda, or on the back of a Twinkie, it should not be allowed. It should not be legal for it to be labeled nutrition facts. There is absolutely nothing nutritious about either of those two products, and it's very misleading for people. And I think there are people out there that know these that are key people, that are pivotal people in how information is flowed or how these products are distributed to consumers, that aren't taking the necessary steps for out of fear, basically, to say, hey, the type of iron that's in our cereal is not good, or there's too much of it, or it's misrepresented with how much you need. The recommended daily allowances were, for the large part, set into place in the 20s. And so taking vitamin C, what they did is they took a group of inmates and they basically starved them of vitamin C and then gave them just enough to fend off scurvy. And then said, this is what the recommended daily allowance is, just enough to where you don't have scurvy, basically. Yeah, and so I think there's people that know this information and that are not insisting that we change our MO.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's
yeah.
a good question, is where are these guidelines coming from? Where are these recommended amounts
Right.
coming from? Do you know? I don't.
I mean, I think it comes from the government level. The government puts out a new food pyramid every couple of years, and they still keep dairy on it and meat in high, proportions. I love dairy and I love meat and I eat the crap out of it all the time. But I'm also exercising and working out and focusing with other modalities or other things on these areas that are in high inflammation and that need to be regulated from eating those things. So I can do everything in moderation.
Isn't wheat one of the biggest parts of the pyramid? I could be wrong.
I think it is.
Or it used to be, and then they changed it or something.
Yeah. And so I know there's a big controversy over gluten, and everybody is now gluten free, and celiacs is a very rare thing. So for every single person now, all of a sudden, to be allergic to gluten
intolerant.
It's a little fad-ish, but I know there is a lot of information out there that is against it. There's good and bad reports and studies done on milk that it's good for you, it's bad for you.
Right.
Both me and my brother drank gallons and gallons and gallons of milk growing up, and we turned out to be never broken a bone, professional athletes and healthy, and so.
And on that, I remember looking back at, or it might have been a viral thing. It was going around. It was an old picture of his class picture of kids. I think this one was boys. I don't know. They're 9, 10, younger, back in the maybe 50s. Mm-hmm. All of them healthy, skinny, as you probably are at that age.
Right.
And then they compared it to a class picture of today.
Yep.
And they're they weren't back then. They were drinking milk. They were eating bread. They were eating just on the surface level, the words, what we're eating now.
Right.
But what is different is what we're eating now is so different. The ingredients are different. What's pumped into it is different. It's just so processed. It's so crazy to think what a difference just that one. Granted, I'm sure they were more active, but I think the food thing is just
And I know it's been going on for a while. Just to touch back on the grains and the wheat and everything. Carbohydrates is the only food that your brain will eat. So you find, these really low energy, what seems like low cognitive functioning people out there who eat absolutely no carbohydrates all day because they lump carbohydrates and wheat and gluten all together, and then you just are deficient in all these areas.
Well, that's what I
and
hear.
You break down.
Is
Right,
stay away
exactly.
from the carbs.
Right, and that's the only thing that your brain eats. So if you
So you
have
need carbs.
you need carbs, definitely. They are responsible for brain function and the contraction of muscles. So if you're feeling sluggish and weak, and you haven't had any carbohydrates anytime soon in the last couple of days, you're probably extremely deficient on it. And your cognitive function will be greatly diminished by it.
What do you think are the best way to get the best kind of carbs? Anything? Bread, pasta? I mean...
Again, I think it depends on how you are regulating your system. So like for an athlete, I can eat a whole thing of quinoa, or I can eat a whole thing of pasta. And I'm going to be able to regulate that pasta that I eat, even though it's not nearly as good as the quinoa. I'm still going to be able
nutrition-wise?
Nutrition-wise,
I was like,
right,
taste-wise, I was like,
no,
what?
I know, yeah.
Pasta is
Yeah.
undeniably better than quinoa.
This is true, absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to be able to regulate all that, and it's not going to affect my system negatively because I have the things in place, and I'm eating in moderation, for my day tomorrow or for however I'm going to be, processing what I'm putting into my body. We put it in there for a reason. Today in our society, eating is so social. It's so, gluttonous. Everything has to taste incredible.
Yeah.
Everything has sugar in it. I think this kind of segues back into what you were just starting to talk about. But that's not the purpose of eating. The purpose of eating is to stay alive. And to go.
How fun.
Exactly right.
You want to go out tonight and try and stay alive together?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
And the earth has amazing tasting things for us. Berries and melons and fruits and all these things. And lentils and beans and all this stuff. Stuff that are high in electrolytes that are really good for your body. And there are things that when cooked together with very simple natural ingredients taste incredible. Not everything has to be pumped full of sugar or salt, and which is what mostly everything is. But I think people need to get back to eating is a form of sustaining yourself so you can continue. It's not necessarily designed for
purely
taste.
pleasure,
Exactly,
Sure.
which we have totally made it into
Sure.
as a society,
Sure.
which is kind of detrimental to us. And
So you're saying the pasta's okay, but
Sure.
maybe not with the feta or the Alfredo sauce.
Sure,
and,
and maybe not without doing anything
butter.
the next day, or just, in eating at, 9:00 at night, which
Right,
is, you're supposed to eat 6 hours before you fall asleep, and
6 hours, really? You're not
think
supposed to
so.
eat the 6 hours before you go to bed?
yeah,
Really?
I think so, yeah.
I don't think I've ever done that.
And you're also supposed to, I know, man, who does it, especially in the American lifestyle.
Yeah.
But you're supposed to eat a huge breakfast. Really, the majority of what you eat that day should be done in the morning because we should be rising up early when the sun comes up, falling into that circadian rhythm, which is very important for our health. And then, working and going outside and, being active
fields,
and play. Yes, exactly. Or running and catching food or, just enjoying life, being with kids and family and doing outdoor activities. And then, for lunch, you're supposed to eat a moderate size meal, not a whole lot. And then for dinner, you're supposed to eat next to nothing. And, let your, system kind of process everything that's been in there and so that you can fall under your recommended daily intake and your resting metabolic rate, so that at night you're burning more than you're consuming during the day, and then you lose weight and you burn calories overnight, and you wake up hungry again and are supposed to eat within the first 30 to 45 minutes of being awake to start your metabolism, so you start, don't start storing things and turning it into fat. And
What do you think about intermittent fasting?
I think it's great. I think we're definitely supposed to do that. You hear about people surviving, and they can survive for 43 days or something like that without
I
any
hear these
food.
cases, and I'm like, what?
Yeah. And so the body is incredible, and it can pull energy and food from all these different areas. You can go for a long period of time without being having to eat, obviously without huge energy output. If you're hiking and you're traveling, from destination to destination every day, you're going to need that food. You're not going to be able to go for 48 days, while putting out that energy output. You got to replenish that within your system.
Go on like a hike for 45 days and not eat anything.
Exactly, right, exactly. Generally, you see that when somebody is not moving and not requiring, all the
If you just sit there, you can
you're good
go
for a long time.
for 45 days without eating.
But water, it doesn't really matter. You can't go for much more than 3 days, without expiring completely. But you had said something about things being processed and our diet today, and how back in the day those pictures of a class was V-shaped and healthy and skinny, and now it's the opposite. And I think a lot of that has to do with our preservatives and our refined food, and how sugar is in absolutely everything. Absolutely everything. I was told that there's sugar in cigarettes as well. I know.
Why not?
I don't.
Because why
sure,
not?
Sure, why
Just
not?
throw them in there. Yeah.
I also heard that the majority of cigarettes that are manufactured are 85% paper.
What are?
The majority of the tobacco that's inside cigarettes are 85% paper, dyed paper. I heard that from a gentleman that sued big tobacco company.
I think that's my biggest thing right now is just the lack of knowledge and transparency.
Sure.
I think I tend to fall in line with people will do what they do, and everyone can have their options and they can make their own decisions.
Right.
But it's hard to make your own decisions when you don't even know what's there.
Sure.
I know that this whole whatever law it was that has required eateries to start putting calories on has been a huge game changer.
Right.
For me.
Right.
Because now I'll look at things that I used to order and I'm like, what?
Wow.
That's that much.
Right.
That's that many calories.
A McGriddle has 17 million calories
That's
in it or something. And I'll eat 4 of those things for
I thought it
breakfast.
was only 4 million. 17 million calories. My God.
No, yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's true.
it's made me not. I don't order those things anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why I think, changing the nutrition facts, or it being labeled nutrition facts on the back, needs to definitely be changed. We put labels on everything, and we address things, and we associate things in different ways, and how we can tie our minds to certain things, of fire bad, and sugar, good almost right now when it's horrible.
I think that's changing. I hope
think
people
too.
are getting it.
Definitely more and more people are coming out, and you got TED Talks, that are, guy brings out a huge wheelbarrow full of, sugar, and this is how much the, average kid in America eats every year. And
Jeez.
There should be parents that are held accountable, because diabetes is, skyrocketing now, and that's all about what you allow, your child's intake to be.
And that's what we were saying at the break. We're like, with the Equiscope, you're like, it does great things, but at the end of the day, if you're having Big Macs 3 times a day, in theory, yes, it works, but
sure, yeah.
You can't rely on that or the pills or whatever it is.
Yeah, most times people don't want to do the the hard work to change their lifestyle. Most people want a quick fix, which medicine and the Equiscope can definitely help with. We can get you out of pain, but you're most likely going to slip back into that, because you are, and that's with real severe cases like this, where you're eating fast food 3-4 times a day, you're not exercising, you're sitting at a desk for 14 hours a day, 12 hours a day, which we are not designed to do. We're meant to be running around and swimming and climbing and running and doing all that fun stuff. that you're going to slip back into that. You're definitely going to. 'Cause that's your lifestyle. That's what you are creating day in and day out. So that's another thing that we want to be able to change and address is what you're doing throughout your life and how that's really affecting you. But this is something that has been ingrained in us from a very long time, since those times of those pictures you were talking about. In Vietnam, Vietnamese soldiers started to decompose by a day, 2 days max. American soldiers
After
took
they
them
were killed?
after they expired. Yeah, it would take American soldiers 5 days to 7 days to start decomposing
Because of all the preservatives?
Because all the preservatives.
Oh
in
my
our food.
gosh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
So this is something that's been going on that our bodies have now acclimated to, and that we're
We're turning into Twinkies.
yeah, turning into Twinkies.
It's gonna be like 7 years for body to decompose.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's definitely a fight that we're fighting that has a long-standing influence in our society, and how we think, and how we label things. So that's, I think, definitely something that we want to address eventually down the road. And just to let people know. First and foremost, there is something that can improve the quality of your life right now.
Yeah.
Something that can get you out of pain. That can, get you back to your life doing the things that you love, that costs next to nothing and has no side effects and is completely safe. And has a lot of studies, done in the past on this type of technology, and that's been around, since 10,000 years ago, and using the same ideas of Chinese medicine and natural healing that the earth provides for us. I think we can go into areas as well as like dental health. You look at these tribes in other parts of the world where they have perfect, beautiful, pearly white teeth, and they don't brush them. They have no
That's
hygiene.
very true, right?
They don't, they have no cavities, but all they eat are plants and fruits and vegetables and grains, and they're perfectly healthy. And if you think about it, it's another thing. We want to get people to start thinking about things in a different way, kind of critically thinking, which they don't teach our kids how to do in school, is, humanity was not waiting for the 21st century to come around to create a toothbrush. And now you can have clean teeth. What did the humans for the last, however long just have rotted, horrible teeth really, really quickly? No, the body and the world and everything was designed and created to have a self-sustaining flow.
Like it was pretty much set up for us.
Right,
There's a reason why we survived all these years.
Sure, yeah. And the earth is incredibly smart and will provide for us, as long as we don't, kill it, which we're trying to do right now. But, just kind of breaking the paradigm of how people think about things in their daily lives that they don't associate that they're doing. And, things with cell phones and, not keeping it by your body. And, I think it's throat, brain, and mouth cancer has increased by, I think it's 85% since the inception of the cell phone.
Really?
Yeah.
I've wondered the numbers because the fear is out there, but I didn't know the actual data.
And that's a stat from, I think, 2014 or 15 or something like that. But it's just, there's a lot that we have in our lifestyle that we don't really think about and process just because it's accepted, and we want to be able to change that as well. And,
yeah, absolutely.
we don't want to take away the American lifestyle completely and take away people's freedom. You're never going to be able to do that, and free will, and I want to have a Twinkie today. I only want to eat Twinkies today.
But you should know what the Twinkie is.
Exactly, you should know what it is,
right.
and how to do that in moderation, and all the benefits and your other options. The healthy Twinkie.
Right. No, I think you're right in saying that. I think we've kind of forgotten that. Just in our way of thinking that there are, speaking specifically with food, like there were other ways of doing this. Like it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't
Sure.
have to be, free for all. Like make it as, as pump the hormones and the preservatives, make it last long. Like no, we were already set up, like
Sure.
you said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
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 So yeah.
Well, let's pull out the machine. I want to
Cool.
see this Equiscope. I want to see what we've
Alrighty.
been talking about this whole time.
Yeah, it's in a.
Is
really-
it called Electro-Scope or is it is it called Equiscope or Electro-Equiscope? 'Cause I see that on there.
The Equiscope is generally what it's referred to as. I guess its full name is the Electro-Equiscope.
Okay.
The predecessors of the machine are the Accuscope and the Myopulse, and this is 2.0 of those pieces of information, of those machines.
Okay.
The left side of the machine here is the Accuscope and addresses all neurological and nervous tissue damage.
Okay.
The right side of the machine is the Myopulse and encompasses everything else from bone, ligament, skin, tendon, fascia,
Okay.
muscle, all of that. So within the two machines, you encompass the entire body and all the
So this is
cells.
two machines in one.
This is two machines in one, so it's far more mobile. The other devices are each separately this size, so it's far more cumbersome. You can't really travel with it. It's hard to take around. This guy, you can just flip close. About 25
So they're already
pounds.
starting to get smaller, a little bit
Smaller,
lighter,
yeah.
a little bit.
And this is a design that's been around for quite some time, so it can be made much smaller, much faster. This already is faster than the other devices that are out there. It's looking for more abnormalities within the skin. It's got a bigger battery. It lasts longer. It's got a lithium ion battery in it, so it's constantly recharging itself. So one of these machines' batteries will last 10, 12, 13, 15 years. Just depends on how well you keep it plugged in. Can't be plugged in while it's in use. Has to be plugged in only when it's out of use. It's actually have a fail-safe on it right here that will not allow
Oh
it.
God, yeah. What would happen if it was plugged in and you actually?
It doesn't allow it to turn
Okay.
on. Yeah, it will cut it off. Yeah. It's very strong, and it's using a lot of very interesting math inside of it to be applied into the body, and so it will take AC out of the wall, and it will potentially put it into your body.
AC.
Alternating current.
Bring the top of that down just a little bit, Cody. There we go.
It's just a talking suitcase.
There we go.
And so we don't allow any cell phones on top of it either when we're treating. It'll pull the radiation out of the cell phone.
I've actually heard that. Don't radiation centers do that, or wherever where they say don't you have to turn off your devices.
Right. Yeah. Certain things will definitely affect it. But it's very, very well made piece of machinery. Very sturdy. I've seen these things dropped from a couple feet up onto cement and have them work flawlessly for another multitude of years.
That's a weird question. Is say something does happen that kind of messes it up a little bit. Could there be any side effects from the wrong kind of current going out or the wrong kind of
I guess potentially, and I think along the lines of thinking that way, it's like, if you set up a power line outside and everything is safe and works, fine, you can stand right under that electric power, line, no problem. But if you get a fray in the wiring up there, you can get potential sparks flying out, which, no longer does its natural job. Now it's putting you into harm's way.
Is there a way to detect that?
And this is using such an insanely small amperage, using down to a trillionth of an ampere. So which you can almost not even feel to get down to the individual cellular level. So any type of malfunction at that level really isn't going to do anything to you. And there's been 30, 40 years of this technology, and no issues, no lawsuits, no cases like that happening. So
Nothing.
and generally you'll know, nothing that we could find. We've never had an issue with all the people that we've seen, and all the cases we've heard of, and all the doctors that we've worked with. But generally, the system is pretty easy to use, and there are certain audio and visual tones and cues that will give you a very good understanding of whether the system is working like it's supposed to work. So you'll be able to tell, hey, something's wrong.
Babe.
Yeah.
I saw there's a speaker here. Turn
There
it off
is,
now.
right.
You can close it if you want, then we can downshoot it later. If
Sure.
that works. Yeah, cool.
Cool. So
Why don't you talk about like what the probes do and stuff?
So I have these
Sure.
these two
Yeah.
probes.
yeah, so we have these are different alloys, each one of them. These ones are designed mainly for pulling toxin deep from within the tissue, deep within the bone, up to the surface and decentralizing. You can see on there, you have these black dots and these black smudges and lines placed all the way around them. And that's actually from a human being that we saved that was right behind their ears, and they had a lot of chemical damage, and these probes were getting these pullouts on them, these toxins. Those are actual toxins, heavy
That's so
metals,
crazy.
that was being delocalized through the ear. The body said, I need to push it out here, and it oxidized onto
Wow.
the metal there.
So you just put these.
Yeah, you can put those. Yeah, exactly.
Just like this, right?
Yeah, just like that, anywhere on the body.
I'm cured.
knee, So yeah,
I'm
precisely, exactly. And so the nature of the wave as well, when you have two separate gel spots, which is what we use, an electrolyte gel that goes along with this for the conductance. So you'll have a gel spot here and a spot here, and then dry space in between. Well, the wave has to now dip down into the skin, which creates this pulling effect as well. So you get this delocalization of all these toxins. And then we come in, after we pull everything up to the surface and get everything delocalized there, we then have this alloy, which you make the gel all connect. And so now it doesn't have to dip into the skin. Now it just has to run across the top of the body, the surface, the skin like that, and creates this pushing effect. So everything that you've pulled up now can get pushed into the correct systems to be sweat, peed, and pooped out of your body. Yeah.
To put it bluntly.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. Okay, and that's it.
There's a lot else that goes into it, but generally and a lot of other tools that we use, but that's the main gist of it. And so you delocalize toxins, and then you get rid of them throughout the body.
Delocalize toxins and then get rid of it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty much what it is.
That's pretty much what it is, yeah. Scar tissue, it will identify the frequency of the scar tissue and cut it up in the body. So you get people with locked shoulder, frozen shoulder that can't move, to go over their head, and have full range of motion in a matter of, 25, 35 minutes, because the scar tissue has been removed.
And it knows how to do this because of the programming.
Yeah, and because, so with the missile guidance technology, inside the missile chip was programmed the frequency of the things that fly in the sky, and to be able to scan and find out the frequency of planes and drones and whatnot. And so now it was reverse engineered to look for the frequency range of a human cell, of what's healthy, what's not healthy, and then be able to, kind of like sonar almost, as it passes through your body, be able to know how much frequency an area or a cell is deficient in, and then readjust and apply that and bring it back up to perfect homeostasis and perfect positive and negative conductance, and go through all of its regular processes it should.
Wow.
So there's a lot more to it. We
that's
can
so
hit
crazy.
every area of your body. We can hit the bottom of your feet, the backs of your knees. We can hit every single organ, eyeballs, brain.
I have a wrinkle here that I want
yes.
to take care of.
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll get
okay.
you.
That'd be
We'll
great.
get it gone. Yeah. Just that one right there, yeah.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
see any other wrinkles, so you're good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is amazing. This is incredible. You know, the case studies that I've heard that you guys have talked about, I had never heard of this before. And if you're telling me that, you know, the success rates are what they are, I'm very much looking forward to seeing where this goes.
Us
You know,
too.
I hope you guys are able to grow, help more
Thank you.
people.
Thank you. So are we. That's
Yeah.
our main focus. Definitely
Yeah.
getting human beings better, being a good human being to other human beings, and letting people know that there are other alternatives to health that are fast and effective and affordable.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Well,
Thank
thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much, Cody. Thank
Awesome.
you, and,
Thank
and
you.
Cameron for coming on.
So
This was
pleasure.
so in depth, so helpful.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
Well,
thank you guys. Will have to come on like later on and tell us how things are going
Sure.
down the road.
Absolutely. We got a lot more to talk about, definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thanks.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching the episode. If you're interested in contributing to the conversation and supporting the show, there's 2 easy things you can do. 1, click subscribe, and 2, visit our Patreon page where you get exclusive access to the Exploring Minds community.